Good day everyone. So today I am going to discuss about the language of unscripted commentary. Most commentaries have something to do with description, explanation, or opinion, but the three are not always present in equal proportions. Some forms of written commentary, for instance, by providing the supplementary information which will enable a text to be more fully understood, set out purely to explain. In spoken commentary, on the other hand, the need for vivid description is often so strong as to reduce explanation to a minimum. And commentaries are to be found notably on the political kind, both spoken and written, in which there is a great deal of opinion but precious little that is either described or explained. Suppose it is remembered that the descriptions, explanations, and opinions may, on different occasions, relate to an almost unlimited range of subject matter. In that case, it becomes obvious that the term commentary has to serve for many kinds of linguistic activity, all of which would need to be represented in any adequate descriptive treatment and would presumably require separate labels such as exegesis, political comment, and so on. There is little doubt that for most people nowadays, a commentary is a spoken account of events taking place given for the benefit of listeners who cannot see them. There are many occasions when both commentator and listener look at the same event, notably on television. But here, the activity is usually self-evident. Most commentators are mercifully aware of the absurdity or even impertinence of reporting that the ball is in the net, the stumps are spread eagled, or the parade commander has fallen from his horse. In other words, the television commentator's most useful function is to provide background information or explain any bits of activity that do not explain themselves. In contexts where the audience cannot see the event, the commentator must do more than this. He must recreate a chain of activity for his hearers as it develops. Such contexts are almost exclusive to sound broadcasting. So far as commentary is considered a variety, there can be little doubt that it is popularly associated with the efforts of radio commentators. Before we proceed to the discussion, the following short clips are examples of television and radio commentary about sports.
Now you all think the Maverick could allow back-to-back Olympic sprint double champion Elaine Thompson-Herah to run her first race of the season? I mean, peep over the fence and say something. And what would Elaine's season opener be without some controversy? It had some 6 to 7 big-name athletes from her former club MVP, including Tina Clayton, who were all set to run the same event, were pulled from the race, supposedly, because the meet and the event were running behind schedule. Some people say it's hide, trying to hide the athlete them from Elaine.
Bat pad in place. Cam Green looking to finish the deed. Anderson in his sights. He bowled him! The Ashes are retained in 3 tests. An annihilation at the MCG. Cameron Green gets the last wicket, but it is the debut of Scott Boland that will echo through Ashes history. Unforgettable stuff. Australia rampant and dominant. England crushed in a manner that you could barely imagine.
The description of the activity and the provision of background information has been singled out as centrally essential parts of a radio commentator's function, but he is faced with 2 further requirements, perhaps even more fundamental and inescapable: the need to keep an unbroken flow of speech and to sound interesting while doing so. In most other situations that call for non-stop language, the speaker is either reading from a script, reciting from memory, prompting himself with notes, or talking about a well-known topic that has been carefully considered. While a commentator may get some support from any of these aids during the lengthier gaps in proceedings, only spontaneously produced speech can follow the fluctuations that are likely to occur in even the most predictable of events. As a result of these pressures, the successful commentary is marked by a fluency far more than that found in most other forms of unscripted speech. There is an excellent example of this, which is from a commentary on a very common event, a cricket match, and in lines 65 to 72, where a remarkable series of 7 rises is interrupted for a moment by 2 falls and then continues in the same way until the wide fall on square signals ends on the sequence have been reached. Another feature that may contribute to the impression of fluency is the habit of using intonation to connect separate items of information into lengthy, coherent sequences terminated by a contour, often an extra low or extra wide falling tone that gives a clear indication of finality. There is an excellent example of this, which is from a commentary on a very common event, a cricket match, and in lines 65 to 72, where a remarkable series of 7 fall rises is interrupted for a moment by 2 falls and then continues in the same way until the wide fall on square signals ends on the sequence have been reached. The exact process may be seen at work in Roman number 1, whereas in lines 26 to 34, a whole series of different intonation patterns develops before the low fall on Saturday. Suppose convincing evidence of fluency is hard to find in a commentary that has been reduced to writing. In that case, many features may be put forward as signs of the commentator's efforts to sound interesting. No doubt, interest in the last resort is related to subject matter and choice of vocabulary. Still, it can be stimulated to a considerable extent using varied phonological effects. Indeed, some commentators can be a delight to listen to while providing very little in the way of information. Since the two specimens of commentary are on such different events, it is not surprising that they show phonological variety differently. In case 2, the extreme solemnity of the occasion and the impressive slowness in which events took place to render many effects either inappropriate or impossible. The commentator used increased speed in only 3 instances, the line 73 to 82, and slows down only once, 82 to 84 lines. Elsewhere, his language is as regular in speed as the processing he is describing, with only 1 or 2 local fluctuations in the form of drawled syllables. And variety is introduced mainly using pitch range, where adopting a relatively narrow norm for individual tone units enables them to be linked in long sequences marked off by a high start and an extremely low endpoint, in which the frequent wide nuclei provide centers of contrast. Extract 1 give a good impression of the wide range of phonological features that an equally expert commentator may use when confronted with an activity that fluctuates rapidly and dramatically. A glance at the margins shows that there is a good deal of prosodic contrast in addition to several paralinguistic features. The pitch, loudness, and speed systems are exceptionally well represented, and both complex and straightforward parameters are needed in the description. Even in the first 15 lines or so, where very little is happening on the field, loudness varies from piano through crescendo to the unmarked norm, which is then punctuated by a couple of short piano spells before tailing off in a diminuendo. Within the same stretch, there is an accelerando in lines 3 to 4 and an allegro in lines 8 to 9. To vary the tempo and pitch range, variations include low monotone in line 9 and a stretch of monotone followed by a narrow nucleus and a level of the nucleus in lines 11 to 12, which adds up in effect to a passage of narrowed pitch range that is in sharp contrast with the wide contours that precede and follow it. And add to these features the two rhythmic sections in lines 4, 5, 7, husky in line 8, tremulous in line 10, and giggle in line 10. And a picture of a type of discourse with a considerable amount of fluctuation and variety in its sound is established. So today I have discussed about the introduction of the language of unscripted commentary, and which will be delved deeper by the next reporter.